So, it's a beautiful night in the desert. Like it always is. I don't say the same thing always about Los Angeles at nights, but out here in the desert, it's beautiful. So, I hope everybody will tune in for yet another adventure into the night. Just get the vibes. The dark road, the narrow road, darkness all around. And I like when the road goes on forever. I have to get somebody to dinner. Because you don't want to miss dinner. Dinner being the second most essential meal of the day, maybe third. I kind of hope everybody just has to watch this, just to like monitor me. Like, oh my God, what did he say? He said something.
It's trying to sprinkle.
Yeah, 1 and 2. Do you want to go? And then I'm going. Head on down. I guess I could have gone the other way. Kind of a longer, darker road.
Story of our lives.
Story of our lives, you say, is the longer, darker road. There we go. People are coming in. Take a ride. Relax. Feel some vibes. A little bit of vibes for you and I. It's good for you. Relaxation is good for you. It's like, what do they say? All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. I think that was from that movie with Jack Nicholson, where he had like an axe and he like went insane. The Shining. Yes, The Shining. Why not? Delightful. And I hope everybody's doing well. Please feel free to participate in any chat you would like. Just drop the thoughts into the chat. Communicate, greet, wonder, realize. Speculate. Wildly speculating chat. Chats are always, like, some people speculate wildly in a funny way. Other people are like, just like, no, don't put that in the chat. But most of it is pretty welcome. I mean, everybody has their own like communication quirks that they go about.
Jacob Harkey.
What's up, Jacob Harkey?
Hey, Zach.
I hope you're doing well, Jacob. I think I saw Jacob was, you're teaching, right? And like, I thought that was cool. I was like, I'm always for informing young minds. Like, I've worked with like third graders, I work with college kids. Like, I think kids are awesome. And like, I wish more people were more invested in the youth like Jacob Harkey is. And like, the great thing about like young people is they have open minds. They're impressionable. Like, you can literally change how they think about the world. And like, that's kind of cool because most adults are just like stuck in their ways.
Jacob Harkey, yeah, that's right. Elementary school, special education.
Heck yeah. Jacob Harkey is a super cool dude if you guys don't know. Wonderful journalist. I always enjoyed streaming with Jacob, covering the Scientology protests. Just because Jacob is so well spoken. And like, it makes me seriously happy to find out that he's working with the youth. Because like, working with the youth is important. Like, we should have people who are invested in the future and actually like care and put their lives into it. So shout out Jacob Harkey for doing good work. Shout out to people everywhere doing good work to help kids. And like, kids should be protected and they should be uplifted. I definitely heard a lot of people like screaming about kids, but in a way that's like callously adult. And like, it's kind of like, if you want kids to have better lives, like, be for the kids. Like, say what up to them. Like, be nice to kids. Like, be good.
Harkey, thanks, Zach. I appreciate the compliments. Right back at you, man.
Absolutely. And like, you know, like, I think like good people, right, of good faith and conscience can stand up and like change the society for the better. And like, I mean, I'm older than Jacob. I won't say by how much, but like, Jacob inspires me, and like, I want more people in my life that inspire me. You know, challenge me to want to be a more informed, better person who's invested in the community, shows up, you know, speaks from the heart, and always acts with integrity. And like, that shouldn't be as rare as it is in our society. Like, more people should be more invested in like the good. So Jacob, keep doing good stuff, man. Like, I'm with you. And like, I want to see like more writing on Substack. I was just like, I want to write like a piece with Harkey, and maybe we can still do that. I don't know. I kind of stopped writing about the Scientology thing because people were getting too weirded out by like the news coverage of it, and the fact that I actually had to like investigate new news. But I think like getting the focus, you know, on the Church of Scientology in a meaningful way, especially with the court cases that are going on, is really important. Like, I love reading Tony Ortega's takes on those, because I think Tony always does a really good job of covering, you know, the ins and outs of the court cases. But like, I also feel like there's probably some more room there for more and better coverage of those cases. Particularly, you know, like continuing to investigate Scientology's fair gaming of people, trying to prove it. And like, even the LAPD couldn't prove that they had fair gamed their own detectives. And I still haven't heard anything about the prosecutor, Rhino Mueller. And like, that is really, really important, because if you're able to systematically undermine the rule of law to victimize people like Scientology does, that's a problem. And like, that's something that people should really be speaking out about. And I was like, kind of bemused to see that the LAPD wouldn't defend their own people when they claimed that they were harassed. So like, James Quealy of the LA Times had that story, and he had a piece last April about it, but I haven't seen anything since, other than I learned that the 2 detectives' complaints were not sustained. But it's a beautiful night here, out here in the desert. And we're just taking a little ride here from point A to point B and back again. And like, I haven't seen a good Jacob smile, but I'm out of LA. LA's too much. We should live simpler lives. Simple pleasures. Things are the way they should be. And life should be good for everybody. I never understand people who predicate their own joy on destroying others. Are constantly feuding. It's kind of like besides the point. I don't know what they're honking at. We're all in the same traffic. Not going anywhere faster than anybody else is gonna let us. Dinosaur industry, the fossil fuels, slowly taking out planet Earth. My passenger would agree with that. My unseen passenger of the night. And it's like raining just a little bit now. Earlier it was raining a lot. What does Jacob say to me?
Since I've started working full-time, I haven't been as active with the journalism endeavors, but it's definitely still something I'm interested in. Would love to get back into it.
Yeah, and like I definitely feel that it's hard to like work a full-time gig and like do like serious journalism work, like more than just like writing about your personal story. Like it's really hard. It takes a lot of effort to get like just to have information, much less like foolproof information, put it into writing, have it, you know, perfectly edited and get it out there. And like sometimes I would have typos and people would be like, oh, you made a typo, and I'd be like, yeah, it's gonna happen. But then I started using AI and I have fewer typos. Sometimes it's still not perfect, but it's definitely getting like the Quillbot going made the writing process easier, because as I was writing, it would just flag the little speed typos that I would make, like pounding out a story. And like people think that the newspapers don't make typos, but I mean, I found a typo in the LA Times yesterday on their fire chief story, and I emailed them right away and offered my services as a copy editor. Somehow, though, I don't think I'm getting hired at the LA Times. So many people getting laid off and bought out and all that ugliness. Like, it's really bad that Los Angeles does not have a stronger news market, it seems. And like, I'm just happy that some of the people I know at the LA Times who have really critical beats to cover, particularly on criminal justice, haven't lost their jobs. That is like a small saving grace that they still have certain reporters who cover LAPD, the Sheriff's Department, criminal justice. I think that's kind of the last thing that they're going to lay off. I mean, I think people want weather and they want crime. And strangely enough, the two have an interrelationship. They kind of go hand in hand, whether you believe it or not. It's just kind of the way the world works. I'll go the dark road. Why not? A little bit of cruise. See the dark side. Darkness, my old friend. Darkness. There's a person here. There's a person here on the screen. Hiding person. Boom. Darkness. And like, I always loved like LA journalism in particular. And like, even though like I've moved out of LA, I'm still gonna write about LA because it's that scandalous. And like, I always love the LA noir kind of like style. Like, I like it when like stuff about LA makes your skin just tingle a little bit and you go, oh my God, what's happening here? And like, I definitely felt the Scientology story had that kind of sizzle a little bit, just because there was some really freaky stuff happening sometimes. You catch Scientologists out in the open in their weird costumes, and they would go like scrambling, and you'd be like, what's up with that? The swatting different feel, more like repugnancy, like, why are you swatting people? But like the actual Scientology like content there was always like really entertaining. It was like almost like ghostly. Like one night I was like sitting out there at like 1:30 in the morning, and like they were crossing L. Ron Hubbard Way, and I spotted them and they went, oh my God, like an outsider, and just scrambled. That was creepy. So like, shame on cults, shame on old cults in America. Down with the cult mentality. Free thinking individuals, creativity, free flow, togetherness, getting along, improving society. These are things we should be doing. And like, certainly big question mark on if like artificial intelligence is going to help that. Like the LA Times rolling out AI hot takes on their own writers. And like, I'm sorry, like I just don't see the computer having any better consistency than an actual like human editor. They labeled like Gustavo Arellano column as left that wasn't that far left, and then Jackie Collins, their Washington DC columnist, like roundly criticized Trump, and they labeled her center left. And I was just like, I'm not sure what the difference here is between left and center left. And I think Gustavo Arellano is a rancho libertarian, more properly. I'm like about ready to write them a letter and just be like, you guys need to just let the columnists describe their own political beliefs rather than using AI to pigeonhole them into labels that frankly they don't want or accept. Like, I think that, maybe some differentiation there between what was commentary, on their landing page and what's, supposed to be hard news. And even the hard news isn't always hard news is valuable, but the pigeonholing of their own writers and then the counter arguing too, kind of the discrediting of the columnist argument, it just contributes to kind of this like everybody's got an opinion environment, and that nobody has done any research or any analysis to back up their opinion, right? It's all just relatively uninformed pure opinion, and like it's just equally like problematic for Los Angeles news as it is Washington DC, because like if you've sat through the meetings, right, you've done the work, you actually have the story, as opposed to random person spouting off opinion without doing any research, any interviewing, any assessment, having spent any amount of time on any given beat or topic to have a more informed opinion. So like I mean, it was just kind of like, okay, like if you have AI doing your editing for you, why do you need to display the editing, and why don't you just edit your columnist better, right? Like be like, have you considered XYZ as part of your writing process, right? To consider what the alternate argument to the views you're expressing might be, and to incorporate them and address them better. I do that as a writer. I'm always conscious that some people might not agree with what I have to say, and that I need to represent and show that I've considered their viewpoints in a credible way, right? The people are going to have disagreements, are going to have criticisms, and if everybody agrees all the time, that's really just kind of dangerous groupthink. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't express yourself with confidence and go always be adding a clause, right, that it's just your opinion and it's not informed, because I want informed opinion, not just all opinion. And I do think that's a really dangerous thing with AI editing, essentially, is that you've subtracted the human judgment that editors were supposed to have in the first place. But Patrick Soon-Shiong, billionaire, newspaper owner, pharmaceutical developer, backer of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And like, that's kind of the most bizarre thing, is like, I'm not sure that Patrick Soon-Shiong, owner and publisher of the LA Times, is prepared to accept the AI on his own work product. That he himself would not want to be criticized like that. And I didn't see that in his letter to the public, informing him of this new system for the Los Angeles Times, that he would assess himself, because that's kind of like one of those questions, right? Like, if AI is so smart, is it self-conscious, or is it just kind of gibberishing on without any ethical consideration, without any self-consciousness, without any reflection? And I thought it was just a little bit ironic that he didn't have it on his own piece, because I would have labeled him like center right probably. And I would have had the counter argument, right, that AI needs to come with a disclaimer that it's not a foolproof system for figuring out everything all the time that's smarter than human beings, because it's not smarter than human beings. We control the AI. It creates a lot of fluff, and like I think that's kind of what I've noticed. Like, it's good for double checking an answer, right? Like, hey, like I have a question, I think I know the answer, let me double check. But if I have an original research question, right, that nobody truly has asked before, can it handle that question? And the answer, at least in my experience, has been no, that it can't. That it struggles with that level of thinking. It is not as self-conscious as a human being. And I certainly think that, like, just as like a matter of like good business, that the Los Angeles Times needed that. And I did not see them having that level of insight, frankly, happening. And like, it is presented as an insight tool. But like, what happens when your insight itself is blinded, right? It's blinded by views, right, that are not self-correcting, are not fully diligent. And like, that's a problem for me. So maybe I should write the LA Times and be like, your Perplexity AI tool has some weaknesses that aren't necessarily easily addressed by technology in itself. The technology still has to be managed. And like, I mean, 2001 Space Odyssey, right? Like, the computer, right, can be your enemy in the end. And I certainly think as a writing tool, that's true too. It doesn't always present you with all considered arguments. It's got an assumed point of view that's not necessarily as good as a human, editor can be, or having, even better yet, right, the wisdom of crowds, having many editors, having multiple eyes, right, going through a story and going, this is what's wrong with this story. Here's where you can make your argument stronger. Why don't you say this instead? And did you think of that? I don't think it has that degree of power. It's good, but it's not a perfect tool by any means. It's a tool that has a limited degree of deployment and utility. And certainly, like, we see this already with, like, say, like Waymo cars, right? That it struggles, like, with, deceiving, pedestrians, with emergency vehicles, with unanticipated circumstances. It's only as smart as, we make it. Yeah, I mean, I do think they need to have more insight at the Los Angeles Times rather than just throwing out this tool without any double checking. And like, we've gone through this before with education, where we had online programs and we just handed it off to the for-profit entity without having, faculty actually control it. Yeah, it's pretty obvious when AI has written the article. And like, certainly, just like from a educator perspective, you can detect when somebody has used AI to cheat. It's not as foolproof as, people think it is. People get caught using it. And like, we already have those technologies. So whether or not AI can replace journalism, I don't think so, not fully. I think people can create a cheap imitation of journalism, and that is, popular. That idea of it, right, that it's going to replace the people and it's going to save money, is one of the reasons why people have, been vehemently, AI is taking the world. But it's not an end-all, be-all solution in itself. It's just not as, no matter how many people talk to it and give it their thoughts, it's never going to have the same degree of replication. It's just not the same. And like, I've heard somebody else tell me the other day that they were being careful about using AI because they were afraid of it stealing their content. And I'm like, wanted to be like, it's just not capable of doing that. It doesn't have the same listening ability necessarily, unless you're talking to it, constantly all the time to train it. It's kind of a train the trainers type question. Like, if you just release AI into the world and you don't monitor it, how do you know the machine is working? So, big problem there. I mean, I certainly, value basically an improved spell check, improved grammar checking as a writer, like catch the mistakes before you make them. Really helpful. But as far as content, it's good for fact checking, but you can't write a lead. It doesn't have necessarily the intelligence to determine newsworthiness or to understand that, necessarily all of the human intricacies that are involved in bringing forward, like, particularly breaking news, right? That, you're going to tell the world something for the first time, or investigative journalism too, where you've spent months and months and even years sometimes exploring a topic, gathering information from different sources, filtering it through, trying to turn it right into this product ultimately that's of the highest quality, as opposed to imitation crab. AI is the imitation crab of news. You want it in your California roll at the supermarket, but you're not going to want it at a high-end restaurant at a Nobu. It's just not the same thing. It's not as fresh. So like, it's going to proliferate like so many other technologies, but it's not the end-all be-all itself that people want to think it's going to be. And I think it's important to understand. I think it's really crucial to understand that there are limitations to the artificial intelligence, that it's not as powerful necessarily as people who are profiting off of it are leading people on to believe that it has utility, but it has a limited utility. It's not a solution, it's a start. And that's just kind of like where we're at. I think as far as technology and human beings, and like certainly like when you think about technologies like nuclear weapons, would AI, permit nuclear weapons proliferation, which arguably, right, is against the human interest to have so many weapons floating around with such a destructive potential. But, just ethically, AI block a technology like that? Can it analyze, anti-proliferation strategies effectively? Like, what are the limits of the artifice as far as, applied policy analysis? I don't know. Like, I get it with my search engines, it'll pop up the answer if you ask a question, but you just have to double check it. I always double check that information. I never just go, this is the information, this is, the solution. Like, let's let our kids have this toy, right? And like already there have been lawsuits from parents who are concerned about their children's interactions with AI. And the LA Times had a story about this, that kids are sharing really, really dark thoughts with artificial intelligence. And who is monitoring this, right? Who's going, why are you allowing AI to have full-blown conversations with kids about adult topics? Like, who's responsible for these products? Who's creating, essentially like artificial friends? And like, we went through this, like, I remember when I was like a little kid, right? We had, our digipads in our hands, right? And like, it was the thing, right? But that was in your hand, right? It was a different level of technological engagement than something you're having conversations with. Asking, sharing your deepest fears, your most sensitive questions, just trying to understand your own place in the world as a young person. And I certainly think there needs to be a lot more thought put into some of these products when they're rolled out. And then you're already seeing lawsuits about social media, succeeding in that regard. So I don't think it's gonna be any different.
I think the problem with AI is that it's taking people's jobs.
It's taking people's jobs.
Like the self-checkout at grocery stores. That's a person whose job was taken. Or the fact that it's ripping off artists when you make an AI image. It's just scouring the internet and using whatever, like somebody's art, and just they're not getting they're or with music.
Real talk.
With everything, pretty much everything.
AI is not the same as an artist.
Taking people's jobs. How are we supposed to live if we don't have a job? AI is taking all these jobs.
Well, I think that might do it here for tonight. Some big topics, some big thoughts. The goodness of journalists, the goodness of artists.
Don't support grocery stores that have self-checkouts if you can help it. If you cannot support them, then don't.
And boycott Target.
Why Target?
They're having like a 28-day Target boycott. I think because Target is eliminating more people.
I heard about the economic blackout, which is supposed to be from the 7th to the 14th. Like, basically, tons of stores basically just try to shop local. Independent businesses, farmers markets, but that's a big ask for a lot of people.
Any parting thoughts? Turning off the machine. The machine is going to go off. It's going to come. It's going to come. Bye, machine.